Hi everybody on YouTube, Supersider here, and today we're taking a look at the Gigabyte AORUS Xtreme 1080 Ti. But first we have a little unboxing. They made a beautiful box for this AORUS card here. There's some advertising on the back, which we will skip. You can read it and pause it, I guess. Inside of the beautiful box, we have a black box with an AORUS logo, and once you open it, you'll be greeted with a folder with a nice logo on it. I really like that logo. It's good. And once you open the folder, you'll find a nice little sticker, a CD, which you can always just, throw away, and some warranty information. Always nice. Then you can pop off the lid, which will reveal the card. And also in the box you will get some plugs, but let's face it, if you buy a card like that, you probably don't really need them, right? So this is what the card will look like once you take it out of the wrapping. It's actually a really big card. There's a massive shroud on here, so if you're planning on buying a card like this, make sure you have a case that has enough room to actually fit something like this into it. Make sure your case can support it. This is my previous card, the GTX 980 ACX2 from EVGA, and I'll also compare it to the new 1080 Ti card, which you can see here. And you can definitely see that the shroud is a lot bigger than that one from the 980. So once again, if you want to put this into your case, make sure you have enough room. I'll also show it to you right now. As you can see here, once I power it on for the first time, you can see that it's taking up a lot of my space in my case. Well, there you go, it's powered on. So let's get to the next bit. I thought it would be nice to show you guys some real world performance, and also show you what the GTX 980 in comparison to the 1080 Ti actually does. Before we get to that, I want to tell you that I have an i7-3930K at 4400 MHz with 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM at 1600 MHz on a Gigabyte X79 UD5 with an AX1200i, and of course also have the NCXT Kraken XXT1 liquid cooling to keep my CPU quite cool. Which brings us to the benchmarks. And first up is Arkham Knight, Batman game, and on the left you'll see the GTX 980, and on the right is the 1080 Ti. As you can see here, the 1080 Ti is definitely winning, although I would have thought there would be a bigger difference in frames per second than what we're seeing here, so there might be a CPU bottleneck here, or maybe a smoke. But I mean, in most cases, the 1080 Ti is 30 to maybe 40 frames faster, which is quite an achievement. It's not doubled. And after I ran this game, I was kind of troubled because I didn't think my 1080 Ti was actually getting the most out of my computer. So I actually went to a game that heavily relies on CPU, which is DTI 5 here. Again, GTX 980 is on the left and 1080 Ti is on the right. You can definitely see that in most cases here, the 1080 Ti will give you the double performance here, sometimes going over the 100 FPS. While the 980 struggles to keep it above 40. Sometimes going into the 50s. Really interesting to see that here. There might also be a CPU bottleneck here, because this game of course relies heavily on the CPU. And my CPU is a couple of years old, so that might be a problem. So, but anyway, it's quite a nice increase of FPS here. After this I was kind of worried, so I went back to a game that is not relying heavily on CPU usage, which is Overwatch. thing that I saw is with Overwatch is that if you use a GTX 980, which is again on the left, that you cannot use all the options in the game. Actually, the menu just disables a couple of options. So with the 1080 Ti, I actually went to the options menu and put the game higher than the 980 can actually do. So that's interesting. And as you can see here, the 1080 Ti manages to get 200 FPS. It doesn't really matter what I'm doing. It's the same map. Even the settings are higher. Resolution skill is higher. Everything is higher than the 980. And the 1080 Ti clearly wins. I locked it at 200 FPS, but it could even go above that. So, very interesting fact. After seeing this, I wanted to look at Shadow of Mordor. The 980 is on the top and the 1080 Ti is on the bottom. I did it like this because they have this nice little graph in here that shows you the FPS. What you can see here is that the the 1080 Ti almost doubles the frames per second of the 980 in most cases. As we get to the end here, the frames per second will skyrocket into the extremes. Did not did not think I would see like 250, 260, 270, 280 frames per second max, but it happened anyway. So the scaling on this game is really good. Like 100 more FPS per second, which is really good. After that I went into Battlefield 1, which relies a little bit more on the CPU, as you can see here. 980 is again on the left. You can see that I'm getting like 80, 85 FPS, and the 1080 Ti on the right is doing 120, 130. While the GPU is not actually completely being utilized, and the 980 is. So there's definitely some bottlenecking going on here. There's still some headroom left in the GPU. The GPU is hovering between 70-80% usage in most cases, while the 980 is being completely used. So with a better CPU, I could probably push this FPS a little bit higher than that. But it is what it is. After this, I went to the Division to see what the difference here is. And the funny thing is, pretty much like where the GTX 980 is on the left and 1080 Ti is on the right again. What you can see here is that the 1080 Ti pretty much doubles the performance from the 980. And that's pretty much the thing that happens in most games. So it's pretty nice to see, that in most games you get double the amount of frames per second, as long as you have your computer that is up to par with actually supplying the amount of data that the graphics card needs. As you can see in Battlefield 1, my computer is not capable of doing that. But here, in the Division, this game relies a little bit more on the GPU than I think. And for the most case, the frame rate gets doubled using a 1080 Ti. So it's very nice. Which brings me to the conclusion of this video. Does the 1080 Ti win from the 980? Yes, it does. In most games, it will double your frames per second, as long as you have a good and fast CPU and, of course, hardware that can supply the information that the graphics card needs. Then yeah. So if you're still on a 970 and a 980 and have a decent CPU, maybe even better than mine, then the 1080 Ti will be a fantastic upgrade. It will not let you down. But if you don't have the hardware to support this 1080 Ti, then that might not be for you. But anyway, I really enjoy it. Being able to see my FPS being doubled in pretty much any game that I throw at it is fantastic, especially if you have like 144 megahertz monitor. So it's great. Is it overkill for 1080p? wouldn't really say so. I mean, it's difficult to get 144 frames per second in most games with everything maxed out. So I wouldn't say it's overkill. Maybe the next variant of graphics cards from NVIDIA or AMD will be the overkill, but not this one yet. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and maybe subscribe. And if you want to see me do some other games and maybe test that with the 9080 and 1080 Ti, let me know in the comments down below. Maybe I can do something with that. And hope to see you guys soon. Peace out.